This is a Q&A episode from my recent recomp, which was a months-long build and calorie deficit phase where I estimated I gained around 6 pounds old in new muscle and decreased 10 pounds body weight. And y'all want to know my weight changes, how much lean body mass I had before and now, especially for my size, how many meals I ate per day during the build versus in the deficit phase, and what leg movements I did to grow my legs. So let's get into it. All right, so based on last week's episode where I reviewed my calorie deficit phase, which you can go ahead and listen to that too, if you haven't already, I opened it up for questions. So I think I captured everyone's, but if I missed yours, it was not on purpose. Please just resend it to me and I'll be sure to answer it. But I always like to give context when you guys ask these questions because I feel like it's good for you to learn and really understand and be able to apply what it would mean for you. So as I go through each of these, in typical Jenny fashion, you're going to hear me teach and explain while giving you the answer. So the first question, what is your weight now? So I ended the deficit at 107.5 pounds. Now, keep in mind, I'm like 5'1", so I'm pretty short, right? But I started around, I was anywhere between like 117.9 pounds and 117.5. Like that was my starting point. And so then I dropped down to 107.5 was like my last weigh in. And I think I was averaging around that. Now that's like a 10 pound weight drop, right? Which is pretty significant, but I do expect to go up from there, probably to maybe 2.5 pounds, because I'm going to reverse back up. So I'm going to reverse diet, meaning I'm going to increase my intake back up. And it doesn't mean I'm going to gain back body fat, but I am going to gain weight in the terms of muscle glycogen and water retention that as I increase and in food. So if you think about just, 500, 600 calories of food, that's going to weigh something when you put it into your body. So that will increase the scale. Also, the muscle glycogen that gets stored from that into your muscles, which actually makes you look better and actually makes your muscles more prominent, that is going to increase the weight, but that's not a problem. That's a good thing. Both of these are good things. And then in addition to, so those two things would likely increase, I think I said that already. Yep, will likely increase about 1 to 2 pounds, depending on how high my intake will go back up to. And in addition to that, I am going to have a bit more flexibility with foods and eating out. So I imagine there'll be a small amount of inflammation that will come along with that will just kind of hold steady. So maybe 0.2 pounds. That's gonna change. I don't really plan on doing much different, but I am gonna go out to eat and have some bit more flexibility with food. So all in all, I expect my weight, my lowest was 107.5. I plan to maintain my body fat, but with all those increases, my weight may maintain around 109 to maybe 110, but around probably 109. And when that happens, I'm going to look better because of the muscle glycogen and because of the increase of food. I'm also going to feel good and all of those things. So I like to explain that because I am reversing my clients out of their calorie deficit phases now, and that's their number one concern. It's, well, if I eat more, I'm going to gain more body fat. I'm like, no, you're going to maintain that body fat, but here's why, and here's what it's going to show up on the scale, but here's the difference between the scale and how you actually feel in your body and the science behind it. All right, so that's the first question. The next question, will you share your lean body mass numbers before and after, if you know them? Okay, so I do not have recent DEXA scans because, unfortunately, we live in Bali, and then the past 5 years, we've just been traveling all over the world. And so that means that we aren't in one place long enough in the States to get a DEXA scan done and it be accurate, because if you're my client, then you have to get your DEXA scan done in a certain way. So the latest one I have is from 2021, and that was after doing about 8-month like severe gut protocol where I could not work out, like minimum workout. So I lost a lot of muscle. I was also in a calorie deficit. So the combination of the two, lost a lot of muscle. And I was fairly lean. So I remember before that, way back in the day, getting a DEXA scan done when I was doing CrossFit, and I had a lot more muscle. And I remember that being around 86 pounds of muscle. So this DEXA scan, which again is a lot further after that, and after a year or two of trying to work on gut health, which really pulled back from my training and lifting, and definitely lost muscle in addition to that deficit phase. So in 2021, my lean muscle mass was 79.6. So essentially 80 pounds, which makes sense because I knew I lost a lot of muscle. So I'm assuming, so that was 80 pounds of muscle, 5 pounds of bone, which that's pretty typical for most females that I see, and then 22 pounds of body fat. So that put me at, I was like 107 pounds then, and I was around 22% body fat. So that just kind of give you an idea of that last one. So now I believe that from there, I know I've gained roughly, I would say 6 pounds from gaining old muscle and new muscle. So maybe 86 to 90 pounds muscle. And then I'm probably the same leanness, probably a little leaner, but I'm the same weight. So maybe that puts me around 20% body fat now. Now keep in mind that this is from a DEXA scan. This is like, they're just way more accurate, and they're going to be typically higher body fat percentages than what people are used to seeing. I have a lot of ladies that are like, oh, I did it at a gym and they told me that I was, 12% body fat. And that's kind of, as long as you're measuring the same way, you can kind of use it for trends, but I would take that kind of as a grain of salt. Grain of salt? Salt of grain? No. With a grain of salt. There we go. Just because that's kind of like, I wouldn't compare that number to a DEXA scan, because DEXA scan's going to be a lot higher because it's just more accurate. So that I would guess anywhere, to answer the question of what is my lean body mass now, I would guess anywhere from like 86 to 90 pounds lean muscle mass. That's just a guess though. I would love to get an updated DEXA scan. All right, next up. And I just want to say really quick on the DEXA scan, I have my ladies optionally get a DEXA scan when they start working with me, because we can actually look at numbers. So we can say, how much lean muscle mass do you have, and how much do you have in certain areas, and how much do you want to build to create a certain look and get to a certain body fat percentage. Same with body fat. How much body fat do you have now? How much do we want to decrease? It's just way more fine-tuned than just looking at one data point on the scale. So this is why I have them do that. Is it absolutely required? No, as you can see, I've just achieved that without doing it. Do I want it to have the data? Could it be more precise, and could it be really helpful? Yeah, for sure. So I want to share that. All right, next up, the question is, did you eat 5 meals a day during your cut or build? So in my build, I had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 meals per day. That looked like breakfast, snack, lunch, pre-workout, intra-workout, post-workout, and dinner. Keep in mind, I was also eating 2,400 calories and 350 grams of carbs. And did I have to do it that way? No, I could have condensed them some. I just preferred it. It's just what felt better to me. Did I need probably 5 meals or more to get all that food in? I think so, yes. And then the timing of it all worked out with 7. And the intra-workout is pretty much a drink. So I don't know if you would like consider that a meal, but that was intentional calories that I was getting in, protein and carbs in my workout, mixed in with my water, so a drink form, and then 6 meals outside of that. So that's what I did in my build phase. And then in my deficit phase, I had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 meals per day. Essentially, I removed 2 meals because my calories dropped and it just wasn't necessary that I had those in. So it looked like breakfast, snack, lunch, which pretty much served as my pre-workout, and then I would work out, and then I removed the intra-workout, and then I had my post-workout meal, and then I had dinner. So that was 5. And I know some people think like, oh my gosh, are you just eating all day? I think it's all relative. I enjoy all of my meals a lot. What I would suggest, especially for ladies who want to build their shape and they want to build muscle and or decrease body fat, I definitely think 4 meals per day or more is going to be realistic and optimal, because it's really hard to get in enough calories you need in 3 settings. And then also just from like a functionality standpoint, but then also when you want to really fuel your workout before and after, you generally need that an additional meal to be able to do that. So I typically, when I start with ladies, I have them do 4 or more, but it really is what can you be consistent with? That's the main thing. But I say 4 or more usually. And then from there, once you get in more advanced and essentially you're consistently eating enough, then we can apply more advanced tools like nutrient timing. And then we can add in the pre or the post workout. And then from there, if we're like, all right, now we want to add more things in to optimize what we're doing here, especially with the workouts, and we have more food to work with, then we can add in the intra workout. So there's lots of like levers, there you go, levers we can pull to continue to kind of fine tune and improve this. But there's no like one way is the best way or the set way. This is just how I would think it and what ended up working best for me. All right, next up, did you work with the same coach during your build in your cut? No, I did not. I had 2 separate coaches, and what I would suggest doing, and they were both great. I just had different utilizations and different goals and things that I wanted to kind of the different support that I wanted. So what I would suggest when looking at a coach is your first thing that you want to do, if you haven't done it already, is learn the strategy. If you don't know the strategy for building muscle and decreasing body fat, then you're gonna feel a little lost if you just get started and you just like have macros, right? So if there's no overarching like framework or strategy, I would say that's the first thing you want to learn. So you want to have a coach or container that sets you up to, if you're implementing, you're also getting that like backstory. That I think is like the number one thing when ladies come to me. They're like, many of them have me dabbled in macros before, which I think is great, but they're like, I don't know anything. I don't know where to go from here, because they've never learned it, or they're like, I wasn't as consistent because I didn't really know when I needed to go all in or when I needed to or could kind of relax and give myself a break. So that's what I think is the most important thing. Obviously, that's what I emphasize because I think it's so important, and I'm very, just very adamant about that, and I know it's what my people want. So that's the first thing. Then from there, once you know that, I would really consider a coach who is going to cover and align with your true obstacles in your lifestyle. So when I say true, I mean, I want you to be honest with yourself, because the number of ladies that email me, I'm not kidding, that are like, I want to join, but I think I'm too advanced for your program. And then I get started with them and they cannot track their macros and weigh their food and hit 7 out of 7 days per week. And I'm like, oh, no, this is not too advanced for you, right? So you want to be really honest with yourself on what your obstacle is. And it may not be consistency in the term that we traditionally think. Like, I think a lot of my ladies feel like they are they're executors, right? They can execute and they are consistent. They don't need quote unquote like accountability. They've just never learned what it takes or what is required to or the knowledge, right? And how, or the strategy, right? On how building muscle and decreasing body fat actually works. So I would just consider like, are you someone who goes on vacation, right? And how do you want that to look? And are you somebody who has family and career? And how do you want that? Like, do you want to consider that? And are you somebody who like prioritizes fitness? And that's a big priority in your life. Then you want to have somebody who considers all that and aligns with all of that, because that's where they're going to be coaching you from. Okay, so that's what I considered for me as well when I was looking at different things. Okay, next up, what leg movements did you focus on? So I focused a lot on my legs in a way that I haven't done before in the past couple of years. And beforehand, I really did mostly CrossFit style, functional style movements. So a lot of barbell work, lots of squats, lots of deadlifts. Still definitely did hip thrusts, like sumo deadlifts, like all of that. I didn't really do much machine work until the past, I would say 2-ish years, 2 to 3 years. And it's definitely been a game changer just because I could isolate the movement. I've also really transitioned from going to heavy to going to failure in a much more intentional way. So a lot has changed just like overall with my training. So many, that could be a whole episode for sure. But as far as what leg movements did I specifically focus on, because I do definitely have more leg definition than I ever have before. So in the past year, I've only ran 3 programs. So essentially I have one program and then I do it for like, 4 or 5 months. And then I switch to another program and do that for 4 and 5 months. And as long as I'm progressing in it, I don't change. And I don't want to change. And I don't really like changing my program because it takes like weeks to like get accustomed to a new training program and figure out all the movements. So the majority of that time, I've had 2 leg days per week. I tried for a minute to have 3 leg days per week, and it is definitely doable, but you really have to plan your life around it. You've got to work out on certain days or you just can't recover and line up for it to work out. So that is definitely something to like consider, 3 leg days per week, but it's a big commitment. So 2 days per week is generally what I did, especially if I'm doing dance and other things too. So here are the movements that I've done throughout those, pretty much in all of the programs. I maybe like didn't do all of these at once, but they've all overlapped in all of these different programs. So hip thrust for sure. I've done barbell hip thrust, and we have now a new machine at Undefeated. That's so fantastic. I love it. That's a hip thrust machine. 45-degree hip extension. So that really gets the glutes in a shortened range with, just holding a dumbbell. Hip adduction machine in abduction machine. So pretty much the machine where you squeeze your legs in and then you push your legs out. So I've done both of those in my program. And then glute kickback. So we have a machine now for glute kickback, but I've also done them with cable. So I've done both of those. The leg press machine. I love the leg press machine. It is so good. It's essentially like doing a barbell squat, but you have so much more emphasis and focus on your legs or the area that you're trying to grow because you don't have to work your stabilizers. You don't have anything on your back or core. So I love it, especially the one at Undefeated. And then Bulgarian split squats. These are hard, but these are always in my program. Always. They're so good, but they're challenging for sure. I actually just did them yesterday and put them on my stories because I find them to be a little difficult to set up to get everything that you need in good position, but they're good. They're for sure good. And then lying leg curl for the hamstrings, seated leg curl for the hamstrings, and then RDLs for both the hamstrings and the glutes. I'm doing them on the Smith machine. I really like them on the Smith machine. I feel like I've done them with barbell and I've done them with dumbbell. And I think there's pros and cons to all of these, but I liked on the Smith machine, it removes one more variable of the weight going back and forth, and instead that's locked in. So I can just really focus on my glutes and on my hamstrings and just staying in a solid position. Okay, the last three, leg extension. So that really focused on my quads. That I think has made a huge difference for sure. And then the hack squat. So the hack squat, essentially, again, similar to a squat, but you're really focused on the quad area and getting in a position that benefits the quads. And then lastly, calves. I've only done like one calf exercise per week, but it's part of it for sure. You want to be balanced all over, so you can't skip calves, even though, of course, yeah, they're not my favorite. The rest, though, love it. So that is what I did for my leg movements. And for my ladies in Create Your Shape, right, we focus on, well, what shape do you want to build? Let's get really focused on that. And then we talk about what is your 1 to maybe 3 primary muscle groups that you want to emphasize in this next training block. And then let's review your training program to see, are you getting enough working sets in per week? And if not, what do we need to tweak? What do we need to adjust to be able to get you there, to ensure you are getting enough of a stimulus to see that growth? And then, of course, there's other things like that we just won't get into now about going to failure, or maybe not going to failure, but what that looks like, and progressing and tracking, and then how many sets and reps and all of that good detail. But this is why it's good to do what I consider a training optimization audit that we do in Create Your Shape, to make sure that your training aligns to the shape that you want to build. And then your nutrition, of course, aligns and pairs up with your training in that goal. It's kind of like the magic trifecta that makes it all work. And that's exactly what I did. And that's why I had such success in my build phase, in my deficit phase. And I'm super pumped about it, and super pumped just to be able to share it with you guys and get these good questions in. So thank you for submitting them. And I'll see you next week on the Create Your Shape podcast.